Nice that you looking at. The Lorax, a movie in which Taylor Swift has a role. The Lorax is a 2012 American animated musical fantasy comedy film produced by Universal Pictures and Illumination Entertainment, and distributed by Universal. The film is the second screen adaptation of Dr. Seuss's 1971 children's book The Lorax following the 1972 animated television special. Directed by Chris Renaud, co-directed by Kyle Boulder. Produced by Chris Meledandri and Janet Healy and written by the writing team of Cinco Paul and Ken Dorio, who also served as executive producers alongside Dr. Seuss's widow Audrey Geisel. It stars the voices of Danny DeVito, Ed Helms, Zac Efron, Taylor Swift, Rob Riggle, Jenny Slate and Betty White. The film builds on the book by expanding the story of the Lorax and Ted, the previously unnamed boy who visits the once Lur, and provides an extended ending. The idea for the film was initiated by Geisel, who had an established partnership with Meledandri from a collaboration on Horton Hears a Who. 2008. Geisel approached Meledandri with the idea when he launched Illumination. The film was officially announced in 2009 with the creative team attached, and by 2010, DeVito was cast as the titular character. John Powell composed the score and also wrote the film's songs alongside Paul. The animation was produced in France by the studio Illumination MacGuff, the animation department of MacGuff that was acquired by Illumination in 2011. The Lorax globally premiered at Universal Studios in Hollywood on February 19, 2012, and was theatrically released in the United States on March 2, in IMAX 3D, known in the film exclusively as 3D and 2D. The film received mixed reviews from critics who praised the animation, music and voice acting but criticized the characters and story, while the marketing received backlash for its perceived contradictions to the book's original message. Despite these criticisms, The Lorax was a commercial success, grossing $351 million worldwide against a budget of $70 million. 12-year-old Ted Wiggins lives in Thneedville, a walled city where all vegetation is artificial. Ted's love interest, Audrey, longs to see a real tree, and Ted undertakes to find her one. His grandmother, Norma, tells him about a reclusive man known as the once Lur, who is said to know what happened to the trees. Ted leaves Thneedville and discovers that the land outside of his hometown is a barren, contaminated wasteland. He finds the once Lur, who agrees to tell Ted the story of the trees over multiple visits. The next time he tries to leave town, Ted encounters Thneedville's greedy mayor, Aloysius O'Hare, whose company sells the bottled air that is the town's only source of fresh oxygen, explaining that trees and the oxygen they produce pose a threat to his business. O'Hare tries to intimidate Ted into staying in town, but Ted continues to visit the once Lur. The once Lur recounts how, as a young inventor, he arrived in a lush forest of truffula trees. After chopping down a truffula to create a knitted garment known as a thneed, he was confronted by the Lorax, the self-proclaimed guardian of the forest. The Lorax made him promise not to cut down any more trees. The once Lur harvested the truffula tufts in a sustainable manner until his unscrupulous relatives arrived to help him with his business and convinced him to resume cutting down trees, which led to large profits, but also deforestation and pollution. After the last tree was cut down, the once Lur's business plummeted, his family abandoned him, all the animals left, and the Lorax vanished into the sky, leaving behind a stone platform etched with the word, unless. The once Lur gives Ted the last truffula seed and urges him to plant it. Ted returns home, but is spotted by O'Hare's city-wide surveillance system. Enlisting the help of Audrey and his family, Ted takes the seed to the center of town. O'Hare rallies the citizens against Ted, saying trees are dangerous and filthy. Ted uses a bulldozer to knock down a section of the city wall, revealing the environmental desolation outside. Inspired by Ted's conviction, the crowd turns on O'Hare as his bodyguards Morty and McGurk launch him away on Jet Helmet. The seed is finally planted. As time passes, the land begins to recover and the Lorax reunites with the once Lur. The Lorax is the fourth feature film based on a book by Dr. Seuss. The second fully computer-animated adaptation, the first one being Horton Hears a Who, in 2008, and the first to be released in 3D. The Lorax was also Illumination Entertainment's first film presented in IMAX 3D, known as IMAX 3D, in publicity for the film. The idea for the film was initiated by Audrey Geisel, Drive, Seuss's widow, who had an established partnership with producer Chris Meledandri from a collaboration on Horton Hears a Who. Geisel approached Meledandri when he launched Illumination, saying, "This is the one I want to do next." The film was officially announced in July 2009, with Meledandri attached as the producer and Geisel as the executive producer. Chris Renaud and Kyle Boulder were announced as the director and co-director of the film, while Cinco Paul and Ken Dorio, the duo who wrote the script for Horton Hears a Who and Illumination's previous films, were set to write the screenplay. In 2010, Danny DeVito was cast as the voice of the Lorax. The film was fully produced at the French studio Illumination MacGuff, which was the animation department of MacGuff, acquired by Illumination Entertainment in the summer of 2011. DeVito reprised his role in 5 different languages, including the original English audio, and also for the Russian, German, Italian, Catalan, Valencian, Castellan, Spanish and Latin Spanish dub editions, learning his lines phonetically. Universal added an environmental message to the film's website after a 4th grade class in Brookline, Massachusetts, launched a successful petition through change.org. The film was released on March 2, 2012, in the United States and Canada, and later on July 27, in the United Kingdom. It was also the first film to feature the current Universal Pictures logo, with a rearranged version of the fanfare, originally composed by Jerry Goldsmith and composed and arranged by Brian Tyler, as part of the studio's 100th anniversary. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the Lorax holds an approval rating of 53% based on 155 reviews, with an average rating of 5.9/10. The site's critical consensus reads, "Drive Seuss. The Lorax is cute and funny enough, but the moral simplicity of the book gets lost with the zany Hollywood production values." On Metacritic, the film achieved a score of 46 out of 100 based on reviews from 30 critics, indicating mixed or average reviews. New York Magazine film critic David Edelstein on NPR's All Things Considered strongly objected to the film, arguing that the Hollywood animation and writing formulas washed out the spirit of the book. He wrote that this kind of animated feature was wrong for the source material, demonstrating how the book's text was used in the film in this excerpt from the review. Edelstein discusses Audrey describing the truffula trees to Ted. The touch of their tufts was much softer than silk, and they had the sweet smell of fresh butterfly milk, and Ted says, "Wow. What does that even mean?" And Audrey says, "I know, right?" So one of the only lines that is from the book, that does have Dr. Seuss's sublime whimsy, is basically made fun of, or at least dragged down to earth. The film also garnered some positive reviews from critics such as Richard Rooper, who called it a solid piece of family entertainment. Roger Moore of the Pittsburgh Tribune called the film a feast of bright, Seuss colors, and wonderful Seuss design, and supported its environmentalist message. The film has garnered popularity online as the basis for internet memes, with scenes such as the Lorax's departure gaining popularity on TikTok. In particular, the film's version of the once Lur developed a notable fandom on Tumblr, with many users creating fan art, fan fiction, cosplay, and even alternative versions of the character to ship with each other. This fandom led to the character being labeled as the first instance of a Tumblr sexy man, a term for fictional characters with massive popularity as sex symbols on Tumblr. The soundtrack for the film was composed by John Powell, who had previously composed the score for Horton Hears a Who, 2008, and the songs were written by Cinco Paul. There were 2 soundtrack albums released for the film, the first being Powell's film score and the other being the original songs written by Powell and Paul performed by various artists. Original songs written for the film include Thneedville, This Is the Place, Everybody Needs a Thneed, How Bad Can I Be, and Let It Grow. This is the end of the video. Don't forget to subscribe. See you next time. Bye.